What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tide Talk. Just a reminder, each episode is available on YouTube, and if you're watching now, please take a second to subscribe to our channel and click the like button on this video. You can also find us on your favorite podcast applications like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and if you listen on one of those, we'd really appreciate it if you took a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and a short review, as it helps more people find our podcast. One last plug, if you're not already, go check out the RIFC Club Collector app and go enter the code TIDETALK25, all lowercase, all one word, to get an exclusive pack added to your collection today. So cozy up, grab a beer. Let's dive into this one. That's good. That's good. I'm your host, Matt, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Ryan. Ryan, what's going on, man?
No, it's nice to be back. I felt like I was on the last episode, the amount of times Timmy brought me up, but great to be back on the airwaves.
I enjoyed having you in the chat. Like Scott says, these guys are so late they should take a pregnancy test. Thank you for that. My laptop was doing an update and a restart. It was dicey for a moment. We were scrambling, but we've got a special guest here today. We've got Mr. Tommy Quinlan to join us. He is the RIFC play-by-play analyst on 790 The Score. He's also the host of Soccer New England podcast. So it's a pleasure to have a soccer voice in here. He doesn't just do Rev Spaces. He does do RIFC too. So TQ, what's going on, my man?
Boys, how are we? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Friday, June.
Thursday. That's it. Friday Eve.
Friday
I like
Eve.
that. I like that a lot. So very good to have you on. We're pretty excited for this one. We had some big news kind of break before you coming on, and that was Kano's extension. So we'll start with you there, Tommy, as you did a sit down with Kano on your podcast recently. Give us some snippets from that, as well as talk about what you think this extension means for the long term.
Yeah, let's start with the extension first. I mean, he deserves it, right? I think
absolutely
he did a great job weathering a tough storm, at the beginning of last year, and was able to get this team on the right track. He's got a great attitude about the area. What's up, Quadros? He's got a great attitude about the area. He wants to be here. He wants to build this thing. And, I still think at some point he's going to go to MLS. I think he's building himself up that way. And, USL Championship's a great breeding ground. Also, you don't know what's going to happen in a few years too with, USL's plans of, expansion. So 43 years old, multi-year extension. The guy put together this roster. He was able to get you Maxi Rodriguez in the offseason. I think Alistair Sanchez. So bolstered the roster in a really good way. And, I look at Charleston Battery from this past weekend where they lost a lot of guys and Rhode Island was able to add. So, I think this is really good. And I think people just want to play for Kano. I think Kano's like a likable coach. I think people are intrigued by him. So big for the area. It's huge for the area. I think you guys like it, right?
Absolutely. How much do you think this has to do with the dumpster fire that's going on up the road? And you mentioned Kano potentially stepping up to MLS. Like, how far off would you kind of guess that would be?
A couple of years. Let him get some time, coaching in USL Championship. It's a little bit of a different type of pressure. Like, obviously he wants to win every game. Obviously you want to, put your best foot forward every week, but it's a good learning ground opposed to MLS where there's a little bit more pressure to perform and win. And he's been in the USL Championship for a while, right? He was with Jay Heaps down there in Birmingham Legion. So he knows the league. Now he's just building up his profile. So it's good. I mean, it gives security to us down here, right? And it, tells the rest of the league that, this is a stable situation. You got the stadium coming in. You got a team that just won the Eastern Conference Finals last year and returned 16 of the guys from last year. So it's the perfect plan right now. Everything's good. It's hard to find a place where things have been bad, and this is the right decision.
Absolutely. We had some more news this week as well. You are going to be the radio host on 790 The Score. You're going to be covering the first game at Tidewater. How does it feel to know that you're going to have such a big, part in a pivotal moment in the club's history?
It's great to be back. It's great to finally see this thing come through. I was there when Gina Raimondo, former governor of Rhode Island, announced that this thing was coming. So to see this now come to fruition and to have it be blown out a lot of people's expectations. It's a lot of fun. Like, this is just the fun part now. Like, everything is, a big bonus. There was a lot. There's been a great reception to the team. I see more Rhode Island FC logos than I do Pete Bruins logos, right? So I think you can put Rhode Island a little bit of a notch ahead against the Pete Bruins. I think with the way things are shaping up, you come out there and have a good performance, and you're able to have some momentum going into that first home match. You're going to have a really special crowd out there. And I think people are looking for a good sports team right now. URI basketball flunked out. Same thing with PC. Brown University didn't make the Ivy League playoffs, which are at Brown. So, right now URI is our best hope. RIFC is our best hope. Right? So I think this is good. This is good. This is the sweet spot. So now let's see what happens on the field this Saturday. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited.
Nothing like testing your mettle against a really good team first match as well. Quadros has a question about the radio coverage. Is it just away games in the home opener that'll be on, or is it all home games?
Yeah, it's not all home games. We're working our way to that at some point, and who knows? You can't predict this stuff. And right now we did 10 games last year plus the playoffs, so it was 14 games that we did last year, which was great. They were all 10 home games, and then it was for all obviously the playoff games. So I think they find a value in having an away broadcast because on the ESPN app and on Golazo, well, really the ESPN app, I don't believe and we don't have a TV broadcast team, right? So more people will listen to the broadcast that we do, just from the standpoint that there's a little bit more knowledge there. I don't know what they're doing TV wise, for announcers. I think it's just the same plan as last year. So we'll do all 17 games. We'll do, the home opener, and we'll see what, happens next. That's the plan right now, but things change. It's a fluid business.
Right. Pretty exciting. Matt Hands wants you to know in the chat that Brian is in the America East final. TQ. Shame on you.
Nobody watches Brian. Nobody thinks Brian's going to do anything special.
I went to the quarterfinal game. It was actually a really cool atmosphere. So they do a nice job up there. I will give them some.
Yeah, they've definitely maintained a solid program after what's his name left, the previous head coach.
Grasso.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ryan, I know you had something about TV in the notes as well. I didn't really dive too much into the whole TV side of things, but TQ just touched on it a little bit with we'll get that rotating broadcast group.
That's what I think. Again, they might come out and say these are our TV broadcasters, but that's my assumption right now. I haven't really talked to them about it.
But I know the derby will be nationally televised. So that'll be pretty cool too.
And that's a game I would like to be there for. Again, I don't have control of this stuff, but to be there for the first El Clamico, whatever we're going to call this thing this year, Route 6 derby. I would want to be there for that one, just because.
I got to admit, I'm not a fan of El Clamico. I feel it's very MLS copying a European thing, and like this league's trying to be anti-MLS. Like it reminds me of El Trafico, which I think is equally as stupid. So, El Clamico. I know I'm in the minority, but it does not sit well with me.
So, what would you call it? What would you call the rivalry?
I don't think you can call something a rivalry in the first 2 years. I think you have to kind of let it build up and let a moment happen and let the story write itself.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was just a fun thing. El Clamico just sounded funny. You know what I mean? But people, just like, certain hashtags that are out there, people latched onto the stuff, and, that's how you know it. So, yeah, it'll probably change over time, but, this is what we have for now. But again, the atmosphere for Hartford and Rhode Island last year was incredible. So that's going to be a great national TV game to have on there in that stadium.
Listen, man, I get a free, I can bring a friend for free every once in a while for my season tickets. If you want to hop on board, feel free.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's going to be hard for me to get tickets. So I
know you don't have any.
And I'm there for you. Whatever I can do for you, which is probably not much, I'll be there for you. You're doing a lot for me. So thank you.
Awesome. Good, Ryan. Take it away.
Cool. Well, last one we have here, the big news of the week, Kano extension, whatever. We got parking, everybody. So really excited to see that the team came out with that. I know a special Fluffy Clam that we all know was particularly excited about this. But yeah, Tommy, I don't know, did you have any quick thoughts on the parking situation, kind of how the team went about that?
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be fine, right? The good thing is that you have lots close enough to the stadium. The way I compare it, people are going to be, I think, a little aggravated with a 10-minute walk, and the sound of that at first, but it's no different than walking from the tailgates at Gillette Stadium to from the tailgate lots to Gillette Stadium. So I think it's great that the city of Pawtucket's on board. They seem like they've got something with rideshare apps and RIPTA. So I think getting people to and from the stadium should be pretty good once they get the system down. It's obviously they when I was talking to David yesterday, they said give us some time. We'll probably have to iron out some things along the way, but they're being straight up with everything. Some things are a 10-minute walk, some things are a 12-minute walk, some things are a 15-minute walk, but at least they're telling you straight up, and you're not blindsided when you get there. I'm curious to see how people try to do street parking.
Oh, it's gonna be a disaster.
I'm predicting that's going to be the first local story you see on Tidewater is Pawtucket residents losing their. Can I curse?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, losing their goddamn mind over some, people that are going to Tidewater that are parking on side streets. I see it now. I see it. So
fight erupts in the streets of Pawtucket over parking.
But again, they say they got Pawtucket police to, block off streets on, unless it's residents. And the good thing too is that the parking's, around by businesses. I haven't gone, down there specifically to kind of look at each one, but Paul was talking about how there's different businesses down on East Street. So, people are gonna have things to do. It's gonna, it's gonna be a good distraction if you're worried about a 10-minute walk.
Yep.
I can tell you too, before we did our tour, Kevin, Andrew Quadras, and I went to Cantino's little Cape Verdean spot down over there with the beautiful rooftop bar that you can see the stadium from. So I think a place like that will really benefit from the street parking on game day and people being by. And it's probably a 5 to 7 minute walk from the stadium as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to see Pawtucket do well. I really think this would be cool if this stadium is part of the revitalization of Pawtucket, to make it a serious second city. I think this is going to be a gem for Pawtucket. I know everybody was upset when the Paw Sox left, but McCoy was breaking down. This is a shiny new toy, and it's a really respectable shiny new toy that I truly believe, with the stadium being where it is now, with, the way Cano built this team that has a lot of USL experience and is a ready win now team, I think this is, the model franchise for USL championship moving forward, especially if the city of Pawtucket sees a real economic boom. Like, this is going to be an easy sell to expand the league.
Yeah, and I think when you hear, especially like Brett, I'll plug our interview one more time with him, like the clubs that he talks about are the ones that like really are at that top tier, the Louisvilles of the world, the mostly Louisville he talks about as part of this model. And it's like you have your own stadium, you have a community around it, and you have a team that's competing all at the same time. It's not just one or the other; it's all of that together. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with like it. They have very high aspirations, and I absolutely love that.
And they've been, I feel like, from my experience with them, I'm sure people can say they've had different experiences. I feel like they've been honest the entire time. I think they've been straight up with everything. I think in a lot of ways they've over delivered. The stadium couldn't have been ready, by the time we got to May, but I mean, you drive down School Street and there it is. It's like, oh my God, it's actually really here. With everything that this thing went through to get here, the year delay, I think, got people a little bit cold feet, but this ownership group, put their head down and they trucked forward and they got it done. And we're going to be in a soccer specific stadium in Southern New England, a real one, in May. And I'm the only thing that is left is a gorgeous day, not a cloud in the sky.
Right.
It's going to be beautiful to have that image out there to put out to the rest of the country.
Hopefully it can be similar to the opening day at Bryant, because we got very lucky with that one too. So
yeah,
knock on wood, we can get that as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now let's turn our attention to a little club called Charleston. So for those of you who are not familiar with our away end format, usually we have a guest on that is from the actual area, whether it's a supporters group member or one of their personalities. But we're going to have Tommy fill in as our Charleston expert today. So just quickly a little bit about Charleston before we get into the questions. They were founded in 1993. They're actually the oldest continuously operating professional club in the United States. They won 4 league titles. They have 3 supporters groups down there. Last year, they came in 2nd place in the East and overall. And you'll be shocked to hear, everybody, that they lost in the conference finals to does anyone know who they lost to, the conference finals?
I think a team from the Northeast, right?
You are right. Yep,
Yes.
it was colder.
Yes.
To none other than your Rhode Island FC. So obviously this one, just like setting the stage there of we actually they've only had one other game besides us since the last time they played. So very interesting dynamics there. Going back to where we beat them. Tommy, just before we get into like what they've done so far, how are you feeling just going into this match?
Feel good. Again, you put what Rhode Island's done in the offseason, and you look at what Charleston's lost in the offseason. That's a lot of goals that you got to replace with Nick Marcanich. He went overseas to Spain, and it's great for the club that they were able, to make that transfer. But when it's a double-edged sword. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And, you want the money, you want the transfer money to help bolster your roster. The team that we see this weekend is not the team that we're going to see at the end of the year, I don't believe. It's a lot of new pieces figuring it out right now. And you have a new goalie in there. Adam Grinwis retired at the end of the year. You have I'm just looking at my notes here. You have Luis Zamudio, who started the last game for Charleston Battery, has background in MLS, Liga MX, and I think he was it said he was at Loudoun United too. So some experience, but again, it's new. It's a new environment, it's a new atmosphere, and it's part of the trials and tribulations of the game. They've added in the offseason too. Some midfield depth. They've got some good striker depth. It has MLS experience and playing at a top level with their Honduran national. So I think it's going to be a tight game. It was tight this past weekend with Louisville, where it was 0-0 at halftime, and the expected goals were essentially level. So a tough red card for Charleston. So do you kind of throw that one away? I think you throw every game away for now. I think they're one of the cornerstones of this league. Any type of little hiccups that they have in the beginning of the season, I don't think it's going to be reflective of who they are as a team. But, coming into this weekend, I think Rhode Island FC has the advantage for sure. Just solely based on the fact that you're returning a lot of guys. And I truly think, this weekend you're going to have I would hope a new look Chico and JJ. That's one of the things we talked about with Kano over the last couple of days was, he's expecting that Noah can still grow into this game for, because he's still considerably young, but he believes that we should see more from Chico and JJ. And if you think about it, you talk about the Golden Boot winner, a big part of USL Championship, and JJ Williams, what he did down there in Tampa Bay. So, you add the addition of Maxi Rodriguez in the middle, right? You got Fuson on the outside. It's a wealth of riches, that you really have. Offensively, how does it all come together now? Sure. Charleston Battery has one game more on you. They have 90 minutes more than you do. So, that plays a factor into it. But I think if you're a fan of this team, you should feel really good going into this weekend. Again, you just look at the veteran leadership on this team. You look at everybody that's came back, and you look at now how Maxi Rodriguez could really, be a spark for this team. I agree. I think, again, Chico could really, show that he's a different player in one game. And I think that starts this weekend. Well, I think he didn't have a bad tail end of the year. It's right, at the beginning of the year where I think he was still finding time to gel. Led the team in goals, 11 goals in 29 appearances across all competitions, tied with JJ. So now if you can get that for an extended season,
picked up a knock too.
Yeah. If you get that in extended season, sky's the limit for this team.
Well, I think too, like to your point about gelling, like we saw in the beginning of the season, like we had a lot of talent on the pitch, especially in the attacking end. And I think that's the area where it's really the hardest to gel. And I think you saw that in Charleston last weekend. The big signing they ended up making, which for a while I was like, are they going to do anything? But they brought in Cal Jennings, which kind of really, I think shook a lot of us. But I don't think they looked fluid at all up top. And, especially when you're replacing someone like Marcanich, who is now the all-time USL leader in goals in a season, it's going to take a little bit of time for that to work out potentially.
Yeah, Cal Jennings has got MLS background with LAFC, right? Was on that championship LAFC team. So, his skill set is, certainly there.
Still looks like a Padawan. Stumped him. I love it.
I have to look up Padawan now. It just hit me out of
Padawan learned. It's Star Wars reference.
Oh, see, you know what? I'm not a Star Wars guy, so
right.
that's on me. No,
Nat Hands is
I think
Timmy
too.
are loving this.
Yeah, while you're looking that up too, like I actually said before that game, I ended up watching that game that I kind of expected Charleston to make the jump over Louisville this year, and like Ryan said, they didn't look too cohesive, and I think that the way Louisville played that team is they basically played counter ball versus them. They were Charleston dominated possession early on. They dominated possession throughout, and Louisville was able to pounce on the counter and take some really good chances. And I think we see a similar setup. But I also think, with that midfield and that trove of riches, like you talked about, TQ, that, we can play much different styles and kind of base it up, different based on games this year.
Yeah, I think, I think the first game you want to have two attackers up top, right? I think you definitely want to start Chico and JJ. I think he comes out with a 3-5-2 this weekend, where I think you get, but again, he said he's not married to one formation throughout the course of 90 minutes, which is fine. But, you would imagine what Jojea and Noah on the outside, Frank, Karifa, and Turnbull's not
That's
there.
Where it's going to get interesting.
That's where it gets interesting for sure.
With Baccarat out, it could be a wide open game this weekend. Mm-hmm.
It could be a wide open, which again makes it fun for us, right? You just, which attack is going to be clicking more on the day? Maybe that's the way to look at the weekend.
Absolutely. So, just kind of looking at that first game, and I kind of mentioned it.
Just to go back to real quick with that,
yeah.
Are you gonna bring up Star Wars again?
I'm still confused on what is it, a Jedi, a Padawan?
It's like the Jedi in training.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh.
I watched Indiana Jones. I thought Indiana Jones was a better franchise. I like that one more than Star Wars. That's a better.
People come here for the takes, and that's one of them. I'll tell you that much.
Say it again.
I said people come here for takes, and that certainly is one. That's a take.
I try to provide takes. I provide the most toxic takes in America today.
We do it for the subculture here.
We do it for the subculture. We do it to trigger people and get people angry. But I think the thing that we learned about Noah at the end of last year, especially in the playoffs, is that he's more of a two-way player now. So as much as we talk about Noah going forward, and how it could be interesting, who that third defender is, I think you could have confidence that Noah's going to be able to track back when you need him to, and get the ball up the field. So I think that's the upside of his growth in his game here.
Yeah, that's very well said.
He won you the game in Indy, right? He had the final touch of that game. So that was probably outside of the Charleston game. That was the chippiest playoff game for them, I would think. I thought that was a real dogfight, and I thought for him to step up defensively at the end of that game the way he did, I think he showed you a new dynamic to his game.
Right. And Ryan did a whole slides presentation on Noah and where is Noah and what actually is his best position. And I think his versatility is his best position. So, he can really play in a plethora of positions and be deployed differently based on different systems, and all for the benefit of the team.
I would say the best outside. That's my guess. That
was where that presentation ended with. I think wing is his best. But I don't know. But then granted, that was like in
plays a great false nine.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's in August, and then the rest of the season, he just lit it up with assists. So, but at the same time, a lot of his goals and assists do come from him cutting in from the outside.
Right.
So certainly where it's most dangerous from the outside. In the middle, it feels like, especially now with having Harivu, having Clay, having Maxey, let those guys operate in the middle, and then he can cause havoc on the outside. Not saying he can't play the middle at all, but I mean, I think it makes it more harder to predict where he's going to be at any given time. When you have, that type of established midfield play.
Well, I mean, that's what's going to be a fun thing over and over this year. It's just there's so many guys who can play so many positions and that are very talented at it. Like, I think we could see, 12 different starting 11s this year, and it could be a lot of the same players, but starting in different places. I mean, it's going to be wild.
He did that last year, right? Chico sat at times, Noah sat at times, JJ sat at times, JJ was hurt at times. But I mean, it certainly wasn't necessarily something that was consistent. Especially towards the end, Turnbull, regular starter, Danny Alves, regular starter. Those guys, pretty much non-existent during the playoff run.
Yeah, right on. One other big piece from that game was
Turnbull got hurt too in the Indy game, so that didn't help. It's like he wasn't playing. It felt like his role shifted when they were starting to rely on Morris more.
Sure. One other big piece from the Charleston-Louisville game was Charleston did lose Arturo Rodriguez due to a red card just after 7 minutes, so will not be in there against RIFC. Not at full strength for Charleston as well, but we'll go over some of their players to watch. I'll start, and Ryan, you can hop in after that. But they got Aaron Malloy, the midfielder. He is an absolute engine. I know, Ryan, he was very high on your list of one player you'd love to see come to RIFC. You're a big fan of his. Controls everything. Last year, he averaged 66 accurate passes per 90, 97 touches per 90, and almost 3 chances created. While Markanich got the limelight, Charleston ran through Malloy. Behind Maxey was one of Ryan's favorite non-RIFC players in the leagues. You can tell I'm reading Ryan's notes for this one. But go ahead, Ryan.
It's like ASMR listening to that. I'm not gonna lie. I could fall asleep listening. I could fall asleep listening to Matt just read Ryan's notes.
Which episode?
I didn't realize he had his
read
first one.
You read for like 4 straight minutes to start.
Oh, dude, I read a statement. What was it?
Oh, the Division 1 statement, right?
No, the Division 1 statement. And Ryan's like, you didn't fuck up one word on that. That was awesome.
Unbelievable.
I was like, that was my greatest public speaking job ever.
By the way, whose birthday is it? There's a happy birthday sign in the background.
It was my son's. It's just still up from January, but no big deal. I'm in temporary housing, so it's a mismatch of things.
Have we ever thought about just doing birthday shout outs every episode for people?
Yeah. Happy birthday, Tommy.
Thank you. I'm a Leo, but happy birthday.
Oh, likewise.
Yeah.
Aaron Malloy, I absolutely love him. I just like someone who just steps in the midfield and can control the entire game by himself.
You can read your notes now.
Yeah, I can. But he, like Matt was saying, like beyond Maxey, like he was absolutely one of my favorite players. If you look at any like the rating systems, whether it's FOTMob or SofaScore, he was actually the player. Even though Markanich scored 30 goals last year, that was rated the highest in the league. And if you just watch him in a match, just like where he positions himself, where he drops into, where he stands, it's just never makes mistakes. It's always ready for the ball and just dictates everything for them, which is why I think last game against Louisville, like even though they lost Markanich, they lost all these people, like they still played the exact same way, which went through him, which I don't know if it's their correct decision moving forward. Losing someone like Markanich, you probably have to adjust in some way, but it is fun to watch him. I hope not this weekend, but and I think we also tactically against them, especially in the playoffs, did some very interesting things to nullify him. Chico especially put in a huge shift, like kind of blocking access to him all match, which I know we talked about a ton after that one. So yeah, great player, but hopefully not great this weekend. Cool. So next up, we got everyone's favorite.
I'll let you do your notes now.
Eastern Conference Final, which is Juan David Torres, a winger, absolute pain in the ass. He did score a goal last match, 8 goals, 7 assists last year. I think the big question for him is how much of Nick Markanich can he be? Replacing that many goals, obviously Cal Jennings can help with that, but they are going to look for someone like a Juan David Torres to step up there. And then final player we got. What was that?
It has a hell of a boot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know, obviously Eastern Conference Finals are coming out of that. People are all, really fired up and we're like, screw that guy. But I do think he was, of their players, the most impressive that game.
Yeah, I think he was a game changer. And, that goal, it put you on edge, I think. Because it felt like he could have done it again. Markanich was, pretty much irrelevant in that game in the conference finals last year. So
shout out to Morris Duggan on that one.
Yeah, and you see, you know what? How amazing is it that he pretty much does the same thing against Joseph Martinez this past weekend against San Jose? I mean, it's just that kid was special, and we had him here. So I think you see the type of defender that works, in that defense.
Matt hands on a 3-letter basis with him too. So.
Cool. And then the final one we had to shout out here was Leland Archer, a center back for them. Really good ball playing center back, a lot of leadership back there. Not a big tackler, but always well positioned, very reliable. I think he was one of the people that was called out last year. We only saw him for about 30 minutes in the Eastern Conference Finals, was hurt the entire playoff run for them. And some people did think that might have been a game changer for them. I disagree. But Tommy, any other players you want to shout out on Charleston? As our resident Charleston expert here,
I'm just looking at my notes for this weekend.
How do you not go with Cal Jennings, Ryan? I mean, I figure we're going to talk about him in the section above. I don't know.
I guess again, you see
I
what.
mean, look at him. Come on.
Oh, wow.
That's a great pull-up.
That's a
Tell
good
me that's
combo.
not Cal Jennings. Obi-Wan Kenobi as a Padawan learner.
Oh my God.
Sorry, TQ. Who do you got for other players to watch?
No, I was just going to say Douglas Martinez, 27-year-old forward, could come off the bench this weekend if he doesn't start. You have Hosoi Landry. I practiced that name today. Hosoi Landry. The Ivorian Coast midfielder, played the top flight there. Has a lot of USL Championship experience. So I would say those are the other two guys that you watch for this weekend.
It's perfect. I love getting a little. We're getting a little bit of the inside baseball of the radio broadcast. I like that.
Yeah. So I mean, today you spend the day like just going through team notes, looking back. So for me, the beginning of the year, a lot of this stuff is rehashing things from last year, right? Reminding people what happened over the course of the season, introducing new players, and it's the same thing for both teams right now. Essentially. Obviously you can take, what you can from the last game, but, the story here is to, who are these new people on both sides? Both teams added a lot during the offseason. Lost, again, Charleston lost a lot. So that's a big storyline going into the weekend. And, that's pretty much, my game notes going into it. Talk about the new additions for Charleston, especially again. You have a goalkeeper in there that has MLS experience, as League MX Academy experience, Leonardo Mema Ochoa. So it's really interesting to see how a team that was so good last year is trying to stay in that same upper echelon of the Eastern Conference.
Well, it must be tough too when you see your new goalie give up an absolute howler last weekend, like run under his arm. That was just not good at all. So
Jackson Lee saves that.
Jackson Lee definitely saves that.
It's a nice thing to have on the bench too, isn't it? You have two stud keepers that are can do it for you any night.
Yep. Shout out to Paul Lee. Hopefully he's listening.
Definitely shout out to Mr. Lee.
TQ, if this game goes well for RIFC, what happened?
We move on to week 2.
Short and simple. I like it. Ryan, how about you? This thing goes good. You can elaborate.
Just to expand on that, just to elaborate on it. The thing that I've learned from years of covering MLS and watching soccer in general, that you don't learn anything until especially in this region of the world, you don't learn anything until the summer months.
Sure.
I think that's where we learn what the real character of this team is. As we talked about with Connor the other day, guys were taking time to gel, which is why I think the beginning of the season looked like it did. I think you have high expectations coming into the first several weeks, but I don't think you got a real grasp on who this team is until, mid-June, July, right? So, I just think whatever happens this weekend, great. But, next weekend's Phoenix, and that's going to be a tough battle. And I think you want redemption after, I think, losing to them at home last year.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, how about you?
If the game goes well for Rhode Island FC, I think we see the attack clicking. I think we see the team have very a solid back line. We're not letting Juan David Torres or Cal Jennings kind of getting behind and cause chaos. We do a good job, again, cutting off Aaron Malloy as kind of that head of the snake there. And I think we see our kind of revitalized attack really flourish, especially with a Maxi Rodriguez running in behind and controlling things. So, I think that's if it's going to go well for Rhode Island FC, it's, we let them have the ball, but we devastate them when we have it.
That's pretty well said too. I think for me, it's we patchwork this back line pretty well, because I think that the biggest questions going into this one is what will that defense look like? We know Stoneman was potentially injured. We know Bacharach was out. So who's going to be starting as that third center back? What's that going to look like? And how's that going to work?
Jojea, do you make him that third defender if you're going with a 3-5-2?
Right. So, what is that back line going to look like, and how is it going to hold together? That's kind of my biggest.
I just realized what's.
But you know what? I think maybe the approach then, if this weekend, and just the way you're talking about the defense, you play on the high foot. You maybe try to steal an early goal.
It's going to be Clay, isn't it?
It's going to be Clay.
It's going to be Clay. Clay's going to get dropped.
It's not bad. I think Clay's a good option, right?
Yeah,
he's such a good
midfielder.
Patchwork, right?
We hate the Clay center back thing.
Okay,
but I know
my only thing though is I don't think we saw Clay center back with the midfield options we have now.
What a play!
What was that?
We just got the Tom Quinlan just subscribed to our channel.
Oh, awesome.
I'm sorry I didn't do it before. That's on me. I'm the asshole.
Making moves. TQ, like your subscriber count, if this game does not go well for RIFC, what happened?
We move on to next week. I'm serious. It's
very Belichickian
I'm not trying to
of
be
you.
facetious. It's just I mean, listen, if they go down there and get beat 6-0, okay, then we got problems, right? That's something to be concerned about. But if it's a close game, it's what I expect. I expect it to be nip and tuck. It's the first game for Rhode Island FC, so it's big market tease. If there needs to be an overreaction, you'll listen to the podcast next week and you hear the overreaction if something's bad. But just I don't think now's the time of the year to get necessarily worked up about anything. If something doesn't go well, lots of things didn't go well last year. Where did this team end up?
We just couldn't win. We just couldn't win.
So, I mean, I've seen it with the Revs back in 2014. They weren't the best team in the Eastern Conference, but they came alive at the right time. And that's why they went to MLS Cup against LA Galaxy. They came up short in that one. But nobody would have predicted the Revs in March of 2014 that they would have been in the MLS Cup. So it's hard to get too high. It's hard to get too low after 90 minutes. Again, expectations are high. Everybody's really excited, which is great. The energy is lovely. But for me, I don't know if I'm gonna overreact unless it's really, really bad. But I don't think it's gonna be.
Sure. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it's basically the opposite of what we just said for what went well. I think the center, if the center backs can't kind of hold up back there, we start making a lot of sloppy errors and we let them get on top early. I think it could potentially be a long quote unquote day. I don't think this team has, the true errors that we saw in the beginning of the season last year. A lot of truly head scratchers of this looks like an under 8s team at points. So I think if they can if they don't hold it together and we get down early 1 or 2 goals, I could see this being a tough road back.
All right. For me, it's going to be kind of that link up between the midfield and the attack. I think early on in last year, there were quite a few moments where we were just yelling, shoot the ball, because we weren't taking kind of any of those long distance shots, create any kind of spillage from the keepers. So getting that good link up between the midfield and the
man, the amount of times that you said spillage from the keeper on this podcast when I first joined was crazy.
Well, I think I could see us with all these new pieces and trying to get a little too cute and make the extra pass instead of take a decent shot. That's kind of where I'm going with that from.
You want them to play quick this weekend. And again, right. I think that goes back to what I was saying before. If the defensive issues are what they are in your mind, then I think, it's imperative to, really, knock them off their feet, the first and get that first goal.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I am rooting for the extra pass is when 2 of my club collector people would pass to each other to score the goal. I am in it for that. I want that wicked rare, no man of the match card. So come on.
I have a wicked rare Will Meyer. I can trade you. No problem.
Let's talk offline after.
anyone interested? Anyone? All right, TQ, before we get you out of here, let's end it with a score prediction.
Also get those in the chat. Chat.
Get your score predictions in the chat as we type. TQ, you can start with us. How do you see this one playing out?
3-1 Rhode Island. 3-1.
I like it. Who's scoring those goals?
I think it's a big day for Chico, and I think we see 2 Noah Fuson assists. If I'm living in a fantasy world, 2 Noah Fuson assists, goal for Chico, 3-1 down in Charleston. 3-1, 2-0 kind of seems like it's doable for this team.
Okay. Our guy Kevin, aka FQB, has a 2-2 draw in his. Andrew Quadros has a 1-1 draw. Matt Hands has a 1-1 draw. Ryan's shaking his head. Ryan does not have a draw based on this. What do you got, kiddo?
Hey, I said 9 points from the first 3, and I'm standing by that. I also have 3-1 Rhode Island FC. I think we see a Noah goal, a JJ goal, and a Maxi Rodriguez goal. I also think Noah will get an assist as well.
Again, this team's buzzing. I think this is a good opener. I think you want to go out there and prove something early to the rest of the league. So yeah, I think 3-1 is an ideal score line for you.
I'll take 3-0 if we're being honest. I'll take 5-0 if they'll give it to me. If you want to go ideal, but
ideal.
Yeah. But at the same time, I just to give a little reasoning why that, I really thought the way that Charleston played last week, they gave Louisville a lot of chances. They still tried to play that possession ball, but they just couldn't pay it off. And I think if we can keep them at bay in that perspective, and kind of treat them the way we did in the Eastern Conference Finals, the game plan's there. We did it the week before, or a couple weeks before in Charleston when we had that draw. But Noah makes that goal, and all of a sudden we potentially are the 4 seed, and things potentially different. But yeah, I really think we have a game plan for them, and I think we're at a place where we can even execute it better right now.
Without knowing, I watched bits and pieces of Charleston. I still feel like I'm confident in saying that Rhode Island has better athletes. And I think guys
100%.
Yep.
The thing I didn't get to say after the Eastern Conference Finals was Charleston brought a knife to a bazooka fight. And I still think that it's a line I typed into the guys. It was like, I'm going to say this on air. Totally forgot to say it. And now I have to bring it back like 4 months later. But yeah, I genuinely thought they just looked so outplayed there. Another fun fact about this, this is for all you club collector sickos. The man of the match in both the Detroit City games against Charleston was none other than Maxi Rodriguez as well. So Maxi can play really, really well against this team. So
I appreciate that segue, Bazooka Joe, because I've got my score prediction as 2-1 RIFC. I've got JJ scoring 1. I've got Noah scoring the other, and I have Maxi assisting both. So I'd like to help continue that trend.
Looking at you said so Ryan, you said you see 9 points in the first 3 games.
I've got 7. I've got 7.
It's probably optimistic, but
I've got a draw. I've got 2 wins and a draw.
It's 3 road games, and these road games are not easy on the body. But I mean, if he can take 7, I think that's a really good. I think it's exponentially a better start than what you had last year.
I think 5 is a pretty damn good start coming from
absolutely.
That.
Yeah. 5 to 9 is a sweet spot.
Listen, to be clear, 9 I'm being extremely optimistic. But I mean, if there's a team that's going to feel comfortable going on the road and kicking people's asses, it's hard to doubt this team right now because we watch that over and over again in the hardest environments. So,
yeah, and again, if you see something this weekend that you should have confidence that this team should be able to get 9 points if they go down there in Charleston and they put on the offensive performance that we're talking about here. I think you're more confident next week saying, this team is capable of 9 points.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that's going to be interesting this year is do we see a lot more 3-2s, 4-3s? Do we see a little bit with how much firepower we have? Are we just going, balls to the wall trying to score as much as we absolutely can? Obviously, it's literally the game of soccer in some ways, but are we going to be a little bit more attack minded now with this team?
I think, Frank and Karifa are the anchor of this defense right now. If those two step up and are able to protect Koke, then I think it's going to be really hard for opposing teams to break down this offense. If you have a solid partnership with those two, I think the rest of it works itself out.
All right. I always say that teams start through the spine. So you start with those two. It will be quite all right because the rest of the middle going forward looks really, really good.
Yeah, and again, I think Frank was a big part of the reason why you went as far as you did last year in the playoffs. I think he really was an unsung hero for a lot of that playoff run. So,
him playing wingback allowed Noah to play the other side because you could give up a little bit of defense with Noah at the other wingback because he was just there doing well. So,
yeah, didn't he take it coast to coast at one point last year? Was against Miami.
Was one of the funnier, yeah, absolutely.
One of the best moments of the year last
year. He looked like a golden retriever with a tennis ball in his mouth going forward.
Was the first time he played right wing back? Was that in the second Charleston game? And there was a point where he just might have been playing right wing. It was just all the way last defender. We all were cracking up. What is he doing? But it was it's like any defender when you're playing as a kid. It's the minute they get a chance to go a little forward, they're hell yeah, freedom.
Matt Hands will be having the Cuban Missile Crisis going on. So he is the biggest Frank fan. So that is awesome.
But I am also the biggest Frank fan. I am a huge Frank Nodarcy guy. I think he's a as I said, a big unsung hero for what happens.
Yeah, sure. I guess speaking of the back line though, the only other note is I don't know if we know if Stoneman's out because I also thought he was
right. I think it was listed as day-to-day.
Yeah, a very solid player the entire especially the playoffs. I think Morris Duggan, rightfully so, got a lot of shine in the playoff run, but I think Stoneman was perfectly solid. Didn't notice him, but for good and bad reasons.
Up until the championship game, this defense really didn't make many mistakes in the playoffs.
No.
That's what having that veteran presence does. But in the interest of time, we'll get you on out of here at TQ. Before we let you go, please let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can find your show, and then any final thoughts you want to have and wrap up.
You don't follow. You don't know where to find the chaos yet?
Oh, I do, but
no. At Tommy Quinlan _IV. That is how you follow me, and then just search New England Soccer Weekly into whatever podcast platform you use, and there we are. Poof. So no, really appreciate you guys having me on. Definitely going to be coming on multiple times this year. You don't
Appreciate
think this
that.
is one and done. I would like to do monthly recaps.
Okay.
I'd like to do monthly recaps with you guys. So, hey, we're building the community. We're doing it every week, baby. So
Up in
here
the
it
tide.
is. Year 2.
That's it. Thank you for that, TQ. Ryan, any final thoughts for us?
No, I just can't believe we're actually going to be able to watch this team play Saturday.
Great.
Yeah,
So
we've been
excited.
talking about it so much, blogging about it so much, and now we just get to watch the boys. I love it.
They're here. And it felt like forever to get here, but it really wasn't. So, usually there's, a huge quick turnaround, but it felt like a crawl to get to this moment. So, we're all very excited. So let's do it again.
That's it. I went out, met Matt Hands and Kevin for dinner last night to give them their membership packs for Defiance 1636. And what I said to them was like, it feels like we haven't played in so long, but it's like, oh shit, it's here again, like quick. Like it felt like it was such a long time, but now all of a sudden it's boom, it's right here, it's on our doorstep. So it's a super exciting time to be an RIFC fan.
Especially like, the more we do this every year, you're going to come to find late January, we're in preseason. And then it just, you go from late January preseason to you blink your eyes and we're in March and the season's opening. So,
right. I think the whole like mental correspondence of it, like coinciding with March Madness is like wild, like in my mind. So there's just so much sport that's on right now,
Get used to it.
Yep. That's it. But that'll wrap things up for this one. Remember, Tide Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily social media content. This is a Tide Space. Click that link in this episode description to follow all of our accounts. I've been your host, Matt, for Ryan and TQ for joining us. Thanks again for joining. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time. And as always, up the tide.
Up the tide.